This week is 1 Kings verses 13 to 18. A man of God from Judah. By the word of the Lord, a man of God came from Judah to Bethel. And as Jeroboam was standing by the altar to make an offering, by the word of the Lord he cried out against the altar. Altar, altar, this is what the Lord says. A son named Joshua will be born of the house of David. On you he will sacrifice the priest of the high places to make an offering here. The human bones will be burned on you. That same day the man of God gave a sign. This is the sign of God, that he has declared the altar will be split apart and the ashes on it will be poured out. When King Jeroboam heard that the man of God cried out against the altar at Bethel, he stretched out his hand from the altar and said, "Seize him." But the hand he stretched out toward the man shriveled up, and so he could not pull it back. Also, the altar was split apart, and its ashes poured out according to the sign given by the man of God by the word of the Lord. Then the king said to the man of God, "Intercede with the Lord your God and pray for me that my hand may be restored." So the man of God interceded with the Lord, and the king's hand was restored and became as it was before. The king said to the man of God, "Come home with me for a meal, and I will give you a gift." But the man of God answered the king, "Even if you were to give me half of your possessions, I would not go with you, nor would I eat bread or drink water here, for I was commanded by the word of Lord that you must not eat bread or drink water or return by the way you came." So he took another road and did not return by the way he had come to Bethel. Now there was a certain old prophet living in Bethel, whose sons came and told him all that the man of God had done there that day. They also told their father what he had said to the king. And the father asked them, "Which way did he go?" And his sons showed him which road the man of God from Judah had taken. So he said to his sons, "Saddle the donkey for me." And when they had saddled the donkey for him, he mounted it and rode after the man of God. He found him sitting under an oak tree and asked, "Are you the man of God who came from Judah?" "I am," he replied. So the prophet said to him, "Come home with me and eat." The man of God said, "I cannot turn back, and I cannot go with you, nor can I eat bread or drink water with you in this place. I have been told by the word of the Lord, you must not eat bread or drink water there or return by the way that you came." The old prophet answered, "I am no prophet, as are you. And an angel said to me by the word of the Lord of the God, bring him back with you to your house, so that he may eat bread and drink water." But he was lying to him. So the man of God returned with him and ate and drank in his house. While they were sitting at the table, the word of the Lord came to the old prophet who had brought him back. He cried out to the man of God who had come from Judah, "This is what the Lord says. You have defiled the word of the Lord and have not kept the command of the Lord your God gave you. You came back and ate bread and drank water in the place where I told you not to eat or drink. Therefore your body will not be buried in the tomb of your ancestors." When the man of God had finished eating and drinking, the prophet who had brought him saddled his donkey for him, and as he went on his way, a lion met him on the road and killed him, and his body was left lying on the road, with both the donkey and the lion standing beside it. Some people who passed by saw the body lying there, with the lion standing beside the body, and they went and reported it in the city where the old prophet lived. When the prophet who had brought him back from his journey heard of it, he said, "It is the man of God who defied the word of the Lord. The Lord has given him over to a lion, which has mauled him and killed him, as the word of the Lord had warned him." The prophet said to his sons, "Saddle a donkey for me," and they did so. And when he went out and found the body lying on the road with the donkey, and the lion standing beside it, the lion had neither eaten the body nor mauled the donkey. So the prophet picked up the body of the man of God, laid it on the donkey, brought it back to his own city to mourn for him and bury him. And then he laid the body in his own tomb. And as they mourned for him, he said, "Alas, my brother." After burying him, he said to his sons, "When I die, bury me in the grave where the man of God is buried. Lay my bones beside his bones." For the message he declared by the word of the Lord against the altar in Bethel and against the shrines on the high places in the towns of Samaria will certainly not come true. Will certainly come true. Even after this, Jeroboam did not change his evil ways. But once are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? There was a continual warfare between Rehoboam and Jeroboam, and Rehoboam rested with his ancestors. It was buried with him in the city of David. His mother's name was Naamah, and she was an Ammonite, and Abiah, his son, succeeded him as king. Okay, okay, come on. Excuse me. Even after this, Jeroboam did not change his evil ways, but once more appointed priests for the high places and also from all sorts of people. Anyone who wanted to become a priest, he consecrated for the high places. This was a sin in the house of Jeroboam that led to his downfall and to his destruction from the face of the earth. Ahijah's prophecy against Jeroboam. At that time, Abijah's son Jeroboam became ill, and Jeroboam said to his wife, "Go, disguise yourself so you won't be recognized as the wife of Jeroboam. Then go to Shiloh. Ahijah and the prophet is there, the one who told me I would be king over this people. Take 10 loaves of bread with you, take some cakes and a jar of honey, and go to him. He will tell you what will happen to the boy." So Jeroboam's wife did what he said and went to Ahijah's house in Shiloh. Now Ahijah would not his sight was gone because of his age. But the Lord had told Ahijah, "Jeroboam's wife is coming to ask you about your son, for he is still ill, and you are to give her such and such an answer. When she arrives, she will pretend to be someone else." So when Ahijah heard the sound of her footsteps at the door, he said, "Come in, wife of Jeroboam. Why this pretense? I have been sent to you with bad news." "Go tell," Jeroboam said. "That is what the Lord God of Israel said. I raised you up from among the people and appointed you a ruler over my people in Israel. I tore the kingdom away from the house of David and gave it to you, but you have not been like my servant David, who kept my commands and followed me with all his heart, doing only what was right in my eyes. You have done more evil than all who lived before you. You have made yourself other gods, idols of metal. You have aroused my anger, and you have turned your back on me. Because of this, I am going to bring disaster on the house of Jeroboam. I will cut off from Jeroboam every last male in Israel, slave or free. I will burn up the house of Jeroboam as one burns dung until it is all gone. Dogs will eat those belongings to Jeroboam who die in the city. The birds will feed on those who die in the country. The Lord has spoken. As for you, go back home. When you set foot in your city, the boy will die. All Israel will mourn for him and bury him. He is the only one belonging to Jeroboam who will be buried, because he is the only one in the house of Jeroboam in whom the Lord, the God of Israel, has found anything good. The Lord will raise up himself a king over Israel, who will cut off the family of Jeroboam. Even now this is the beginning to happen, and the Lord will strike Israel so that it will be like a reed swaying in the water. He will uproot Israel from its good land and give to their ancestors and scatter them beyond the Euphrates River, because they aroused the Lord's anger by making Asherah poles, and he will give Israel up because of the sins of Jeroboam has committed and caused Israel to commit. When Jeroboam's wife got up and left and went to Tisra, as soon as she stepped over the threshold of the house, the boy died. They buried him, and all Israel mourned for him, as the Lord had said through his servant and prophet Ahijah. And the other events of Jeroboam's reign, his wars, and how he ruled, are written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel. He reigned for 22 years, and then rested with his ancestors, and Nadab his son succeeded him as king. Rehoboam, king of Judah. Rehoboam, son of Solomon, was king of Judah. He was 41 years old when he became king, and he resigned 17 years later. Reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, in the city the Lord had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, in which to put his name. His mother's name was Naamah, and she was an Ammonite. Judah did every evil in the eyes of the Lord. By the sins they committed, they stirred up his jealous anger more than those who were before them had done. They also set up themselves in high places, sacred stones and Asherah poles on every high hill, and and under every spreading tree. There were even male shrine prostitutes in the land. The people engaged in all the detestable practices of the nation. The Lord had driven them out before the Israelites. In the 5th year of King Rehoboam, Shishak, king of Egypt, attacked Jerusalem. He carried off the treasures of the temple of the Lord and the treasures of the royal palace. He took everything, including all the gold shields Solomon had made. So King Rehoboam made bronze shields to replace them, and assigned these to the commanders of the guard on the duty at the entrance to the royal palace. Whenever the king went to the Lord's temple, the guards bore the shields, and afterwards they returned them to the guard room. As for the other events, Rehoboam reigned, all he did are not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah. There were continual warfare between Rehoboam and Jeroboam, and Rehoboam rested with his ancestors and was buried with them in the city of David. His mother's name was Naamah, and she was an Ammonite. Ahijah and his son succeeded him as king. Ahijah is king of Judah. In the 18th year of the reign of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, Ahijah became king of Judah, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 3 years. His mother's name was Maacah, daughter of Eshelam. He committed all of the sins his father had done before him. His heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God as the heart of David, his forefather, had been. Nevertheless, for David's sake, the Lord his God gave him a lamp in Jerusalem by raising up a son to succeed him, and by making Jerusalem strong. For David had done what was right in the eyes of the Lord, and had not failed to keep any of the Lord's commands all of the days of his life, except in the case of Uriah and the Hittite. There was a war between Ahijah and Jeroboam throughout Ahijah's lifetime. As for the others, events, Ahijah's reign, and all of that he did are not written in the books of the annals of the kings of Judah. There was a war between Ahijah and Jeroboam, and Ahijah rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. And Asa, his son, succeeded him as king. Asa as king of Judah. In the 20th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, Asa became king of Judah, and he reigned in Jerusalem 41 years. His grandmother's name was Mahakah, daughter of Abisalam. Asa did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, as his father David had done. He expelled the male shrine prostitutes from the land and got rid of the idols his ancestors had made. He even disposed his grandmother, Mahakah, from her position as queen mother because she had made a repulsive image for the worship of Asherah. Asa cut it down and burned it in the Kidron Valley. Although he did not remove the high places, Asa's heart was fully committed to the Lord all of his life. He brought into the temple of the Lord gold and silver and articles that he and his father had dedicated. There was war between Asa and Baasha, king of Israel, throughout their reigns. Baasha, king of Israel, went up against Judah and had fortified Ramah to prevent anyone from leaving or entering the territory of Judah. Asa then took all the silver and gold that was left in the treasures of the Lord's temple and in his own palace. He entrusted it to his officials and sent them to Ben-Hadad, son of Tabrimon, son of Hezron, and king of Aram, who was ruling in Damascus. Let there be a treaty between me and you, he said, as there was between my father and your father. See, I am sending you a gift of silver and gold. Now break your treaty with Baasha, king of Israel, so that he will withdraw from me. Ben-Hadad agreed with King Asa and sent the commanders of his forces against the towns of Israel. He conquered Ijah, Dan, Abel, Beth-Makkah, and all of Kinnereth, in addition to Naphtali. When Baasha heard of this, he stopped building Ramah and withdrew to Tisra. Then King Asa issued an order to all of Judah. No one was exempt, and they carried away from Ramoth the stones and timber Baasha had been using there, and with them King Asa built up Geba in Benjamin and also Mizpah. As for the other events of Asa's reign, all of his achievements and all that he did and all the cities he built are not written in the annals of the kings of Judah. In his old age, however, his feet became diseased, and then Asa rested with his ancestors and was buried with them in the city of David. And Jehoshaphat, his son, succeeded him as king. Nadab, king of Israel. Nadab, son of Jeroboam, became king of Israel in the second year of Asa, king of Judah, and he reigned over Israel for 2 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, following the ways of his father, and committed the same sins his father had caused Israel to commit. Baasha, son of Ahijah, from the tribe of Issachar, plotted against him, and he struck him down at Gibbethon, and a Philistine town, while Nadab and all of Israel were besieging it. Baasha killed Nadab in the 3rd year of Asa, king of Judah, and succeeded him as king. As soon as he began to reign, he killed Jeroboam's whole family. He did not leave Jeroboam anyone that breathed, but destroyed them all, according to the word of the Lord given through his servant Ahijah the Shilonite. This happened because of the sins that Jeroboam had committed and caused Israel to commit, and because he aroused the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel. As for the other events, Nadab's reign and all he did are not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel. There was a war between Asa and Baasha, king of Israel, throughout their reign. Baasha, king of Israel. In the 3rd year of Asa, king of Judah, Baasha, son of Ahijah, became king of all of Israel and Tisra, and reigned 24 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, following the ways of Jeroboam, and committed the same sin Jeroboam had caused to Israel to commit. Verse 16. Then the word of the Lord came to Jehu, son of Hanani, concerning Baasha, and lifted you up from the dust and appointed you ruler over my people Israel. But you followed the ways of Jeroboam and caused my people Israel to sin and to arouse my anger by their sins. So I am about to wipe out Baasha and his house, and I will make your house like that of Jeroboam, son of Nebat. Dogs will eat those belonging to Baasha and who died in the city, and the birds will feed on those who died in the country. As for the other events of Baasha's reign, what he did and his achievements, they are not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel. Baasha rested with his ancestors and buried at Tisra, and Elah his son succeeded him as king. Moreover, the word of the Lord came through the prophet Jehu, son of Hanani, and to Baasha and his house, because of all of the evil he had done in the eyes of the Lord, and rousing the anger by the things he did, becoming like the house of Jeroboam, and also because he destroyed it. Elah, king of Israel. In the 26th year of Asa, king of Israel, Elah, son of Baasha, became king of Israel. He reigned in Tisra for 2 years. Zimri, one of his officials who had command of half of his chariots, plotted against him. Elah was in Tisra at the time, getting drunk in the home of Arza, in the palace administrators at Tisra. Timri came in, struck him down, and killed him in the 27th year of the king of Israel, Asa, king of Judea. And then he succeeded him as king. As soon as he began to reign, he was seated on the throne. He killed off Baasha's whole family. He did not spare a single male, whether relative or friend. So Zimri destroyed the whole family of Baasha in accordance with the word of the Lord spoken against Baasha through the prophet Jehu, because of all of the sins Baasha and his son Elah had committed and caused Israel to commit. So they aroused the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, by their worthless idols. As for other events of Elah's reign and all he did, are not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel. Zimri, king of Israel. In the 27th year of Asa, king of Judah, Zimri's reign in Tisra 7 days. The army was encamped near Gibbethon, a Philistine town. When the Israelites in the camp heard that Zimri had plotted against the king and murdered him, they proclaimed Omri, the commander of the army, king over Israel that very day there in the camp. Then Omri and all the Israelites with him withdrew from Gibbethon and laid siege to Tisra. When Zimri saw that the city was taken, he went into the citadel of the royal palace and set the palace on fire around him. So he died, because of the sins he had committed, doing evil in the eyes of the Lord, and following the ways of Jeroboam, and committing the same sin Jeroboam had caused Israel to commit. As for the other events in Zimri's reign, the rebellion he carried out, and are not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel. Omri, king of Israel. Then the people of Israel were split into two factions. Half supported Tibni, son of Gineath, for king, and the other half supported Omri. But Omri's followers proved stronger than those of Timri, son of Gina. So Tibni died, and Omri became king. In the 31st year of Asa, king of Judah, Omri became king of Israel, and he reigned 12 years, 6 of them in Tisra. He bought the hill of Samaria from Shemar for 2 talents of silver, and built a city on the hill, calling it Samaria, after Shemar, the name of the former owner of the hill. But Omri did evil in the eyes of the Lord and sinned more than all of those before him. He followed completely the ways of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, committed the same sins Jeroboam had caused Israel to commit, and so they aroused anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, by their worthless idol, and the other events of Omri's reign, what he did, and the things he achieved are not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel. Omri rested with his ancestors, was buried in Samaria, and Ahab, his son, succeeded him. Ahab becomes king of Israel. In the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, Ahab, son of Omri, became king of Israel, and he reigned in Samaria over Israel for 22 years. Ahab, son of Omri, did more evil in the eyes of the Lord than any of those before him. He did not consider it trivial to commit the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, but he also married Jezebel, daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and began to serve Baal and worship him. He set up an altar for Baal in the temple of Baal, and then he had built in Samaria. Ahab also made an Asherah pole and did more to arouse the anger of the Lord of God than did all of the kings of Israel before him. In Ahab's time, Hiel of Bethel rebuilt Jericho. He laid its foundation at the cost of his firstborn son, Abiram, and he set up its gates at the cost of his youngest son, Segub, in accordance with the word of the Lord spoken by Joshua, his son of Nun. Elijah announces a great drought. Now Elijah the Tishbite from Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab, "As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word." Elijah fed by the ravens. When the word of the Lord came to Elijah, "Leave here, turn eastward, hide in the Kerith ravine east of the Jordan. You will drink from the brook, and I have directed the ravens to supply you with food there." He did so, what the Lord had told him. He went to the Kinnereth ravine east of Jordan and stayed there. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. Elijah and the widow at Zarephath. Sometime later, the brook dried up because there had been no rain in the land. Then the word of the Lord came to him, "Go at once to Zarephath in the region of Sidon and stay there. I have directed a widow there to supply you with food." So he went to Zarephath, and then he came to the town gate. A widow was there gathering sticks. He called to her and asked, "Would you bring me a little water in a jar so I may drink?" As she was going to get it, he called, "And please bring me a piece of bread." "As surely as the Lord God lives," she replied, "I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug. I am gathering a few sticks to take home to make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you have said, but first make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have and bring it to me, and then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord of God of Israel said, the jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry, until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." She went away and did as Elijah had told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family, for the jar of flour was not used up, and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. Sometime later, the son of the woman who owned the house became ill. He grew worse and worse and finally stopped breathing. She said to Elijah, "What do you have against me, the man of God? Did you come to remind me of my son, my sin, and kill my son?" "Give me your son," Elijah replied, and he took him from her arms, carried him to the upper room where he was staying, and laid him on his bed. Then he cried out to the Lord, "Lord, Lord my God, have you brought tragedy even on this widow I am staying with by causing her son to die? And then he stretched himself out on the boy 3 times and cried out to the Lord, Lord my God, let this boy's life return to him. The Lord heard Elijah's cry, and the boy's life returned to him, and he lived. Elijah picked up the child and carried him down to the room into the house. He gave him the woman and said to Elijah, Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord is from your mouth is the truth. Elijah and Obadiah, verse 18. After a long time, in the 3rd year, the word of the Lord came to Elijah. Go and prepare yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the land. So Elijah went to present himself to Ahab. Now the famine was severe in Samaria, and Ahab had summoned Obadiah in his palace as palace administrator. Obadiah was a devout believer in the Lord. While Jezebel was killing off the Lord's prophets, Obadiah had taken 100 prophets and hidden them in 2 caves, 50 in each, and had supplied them with food and water. Ahab had said to Obadiah, Go through the land to all the springs and valleys. Maybe we can find some grass to keep horses and mules alive, so we will not have to kill any of our animals. So they divided the land they were to cover, Ahab going in one direction and Obadiah in the other. As Obadiah was walking along, Elijah met him. Obadiah recognized him, bowed down to the ground, and said, Is it really you, my lord Elijah? Yes, he replied. Go tell your master Elijah is here. What have I done wrong? Asked Obadiah, that you are hand servant over to Ahab to be put to death. As surely as the Lord lives, there is not a nation or kingdom where my master has not sent someone to look for you. And whenever a nation or kingdom claimed you were not there, he made them swear they could not find you. But now you tell me to go to my master and say, Elijah is here. I don't know where the Spirit of the Lord may carry you when I leave you. If I go and tell Ahab and he doesn't find you, he will kill me. Yet I, your servant, have worshipped the Lord since my youth. Haven't you heard, my Lord, what I did while Jezebel was killing the prophets of the Lord? I hid 100 of the Lord's prophets in 2 caves, 50 in each, and supplied them with food. And now you tell me to go to the master and say, Elijah is here? He will kill me. Elijah said, As the Lord Almighty lives, whom I serve, I will surely present myself to Ahab today. Elijah on Mount Carmel. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. When he saw Elijah, he said to him, Is that you, you troublemaker of Israel? I have not made trouble for Elijah. I have not made trouble for Israel, Elijah replied, but you, your father's family, have, and you have abandoned the Lord's commands and followed the Baals, and now summon the people from all over Israel to meet on Mount Carmel, and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherim to eat at Jezebel's table. So Ahab sent word throughout Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. Elijah went before the people and said, How long will you waver between the two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. But the people, then Elijah said to him, I am only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal has 450 prophets. Get 2 bulls for us. Let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set it on fire. And I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, but not set it on fire. And then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord, the God who answers by fire. He is God. And then all of the people said, What you say is good. Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, Choose one of the bulls and prepare it first, since there are so many of you. Call on the name of your God, but do not light the fire." So they took the bull given them and prepared it. And then they called on the name of Baal from morning till noon. "Baal, answer us," they shouted. But there was no response. No one answered. And they danced around the altar they had made. At noon, Elijah began to taunt them. "Shout louder," he said. "Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is deep in thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened." So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears as was their custom until their blood flowed. Midday passed and they continued their frantic prophecy until the time of the evening sacrifice. There was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention. Then Elijah said to all of the people, "Come here to me." And they came to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord which had been torn down. And Elijah took 12 stones, one for each of the tribes descended from Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, "Your name shall be Israel." And the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he dug a trench around it, large enough to hold two seals of seed. And he arranged the wood, cut the bull into pieces, laid it on the wood, and they said to them, "Fill 4 large jars with water, and pour it on the offering and on the wood." "Do it again," he said, and they did it again. "Do it a third time," he ordered, and they did it a third time. The water ran down around the altar and even filled the trench. At the time of the sacrifice, the prophet Elisha stepped forward and prayed, "Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known and that I am your servant and have done all of these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so that these people will know that you, the Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again." Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil also, licked up the water in the trench. When all of the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, "Lord, he is God, the Lord, he is God." Then Elijah commanded them to seize the prophets of Baal. "Don't let anyone get away." They seized them, and Elijah had them brought down to the Kizron Valley and slaughtered there. And Elijah said to Ahab, "Go, eat and drink, for there is the sound of a heavy rain." So Ahab went off to eat and drink, but Elijah climbed to the top of Carmel and bent down to the ground and put his face between his knees. "Go and look towards the sea," he told his servant. And he went up and looked. "There is nothing there," he said. 7 times Elijah said, "Go back." The 7th time the servant reported, "A cloud, as small as a man's hand, is rising from the sea." So Elisha said, "Go and tell Ahab, hitch up your chariot and go down before the rain stops you." Meanwhile, the sky grew black with clouds, and the wind rose. A heavy rain started falling, and Ahab rode off to Jezreel. The power of the Lord came to Elijah. Tucking his cloak into his belt, he ran ahead of Ahab all the way to Jezreel. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.